Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because we are tackling an incredibly urgent topic for South African businesses. Look, right now, artificial intelligence is completely reshaping how we work. But here's the thing. Without the right guardrails, it can quickly become a massive hidden liability. So today, we're breaking down a really comprehensive guide from Repautomate to help you regulate AI use in your company well before it creates any serious risks. I want you to honestly ask yourself this direct question right now. Do you actually know who is using AI in your business today? Because the relatable reality here is that your employees are almost certainly already using it. One person uses it to quickly draft an email, someone else decides to summarize a long meeting's notes, maybe a manager tries it out to format a weekly report. It is happening casually, every single day, and often without any official approval whatsoever. Okay, let's dive into this because this informal, under-the-radar use, that is where the danger truly begins. When AI enters a business silently, you don't just lose visibility, you are literally inviting in severe legal and operational risks. Think about it. Without clear rules on what your staff can and cannot upload, you completely lose control over your company's information, your confidential processes, and ultimately, your final business decisions. To solve this, we are going to translate Repautomate's 10-point framework into an actionable playbook. We'll be covering the hidden AI workplace risk, approved tools and uses, protecting data under POPIA, enforcing quality and oversight, managing incidents and accountability, and finally, training and next steps. Let's kick things off right away with Section 1, the hidden AI workplace risk. For South African businesses, the risk almost always comes back to POPIA. The Protection of Personal Information Act strictly requires personal data to be processed lawfully, securely, and relevantly. If your team is just casually pasting data into unvetted AI chatbots, they could easily be feeding highly sensitive client details straight to a third party. Without rules in place, your business is instantly stripped of its data control, and you could be actively violating this act. Which brings us to Section 2, approved tools and uses. Point 1 of the Repautomate framework is that your internal policy absolutely must explicitly name the approved AI tools your team is allowed to use. Why is this so crucial? Because different vendors handle data very, very differently. Some tools will actually use your inputs to train their public models, while others might store your data outside of South Africa. So your policy must make one rule absolute. Staff may only use approved tools, and you, as the business, only approve them after rigorously checking their security controls and privacy terms. And this brilliantly highlights point 2, defining approved versus restricted use cases. Safe administrative tasks usually include things like drafting internal emails or summarizing completely non-confidential notes. But then you have to restricted side. Legal wording, HR and disciplinary matters, pricing decisions, client-facing advice. These are incredibly high-risk areas. AI should never, ever silently become the final decision maker for anything that affects a person's rights, their employment, or their money. Let's move straight into Section 3, protecting data under POPIA. Now, what's really interesting here is just how broadly POPIA defines personal information. We're not just talking about an ID number. It includes contact details, location information, employment history, and private correspondence for both individuals and existing companies. Basically, this means your staff has to be hyper-vigilant about every single word they decide to type into a chat prompt. So point 3 of the policy demands a strict list of what never goes into an unapproved AI tool. We're talking about client records, medical information, private contracts, and confidential operational details. Furthermore, POPIA has a whole separate category for what it calls special personal information. This includes things like race, health, or criminal behavior. This requires immense extra care and a clear, lawful basis to process, meaning it should absolutely never be casually uploaded into an AI interface. This builds perfectly into point 4, the vendor review. Under POPIA, anyone processing data for you is considered an operator, and you legally need a written contract with them ensuring security. You just can't let staff approve AI vendors informally on their own. You must use a rigorous checklist. What data is collected? Where exactly is it stored? Is it being used for training? Can staff access be managed? Doing this turns AI adoption from a really risky personal choice into a smart, controlled business decision. Point 5 deals with data geography. POPI clearly states that data leaving South Africa requires strict scrutiny to ensure there is adequate legal protection in the destination country. And as we know, many popular AI tools process and store their data overseas. You cannot expect your staff to assess complex international data privacy laws on their own. Cross-border use has to be reviewed at the business level before a single piece of personal information is uploaded. Next up is Section 4, Enforcing Quality and Oversight. Let this core guiding philosophy really sink in for a second. AI can support the work, but a person must remain responsible for the final result. POPA actually explicitly limits automated decision-making that legally or substantially affects people. Human review is strictly non-negotiable for external communications, HR matters, and any important business decision. Furthermore, POPIA requires data to be complete and accurate. And well, AI can be outdated, it can be misleading, or it can simply invent facts out of thin air, which is something known as hallucinating. Therefore, your policy must mandate active quality control. Staff literally have to act as the ultimate fact-checkers. They must check facts against reliable sources, verify names and dates, and absolutely ensure that the polished AI-generated wording hasn't secretly changed the legal meaning of a contract or a policy. Right, moving on to Section 5, Managing Incidents and Accountability. So the crucial point here is that your policy must tell staff exactly what to do when a mistake inevitably happens. If they accidentally upload confidential data, what is the plan? The information regulator requires notification of security compromises as soon as reasonably possible. So your exact internal steps should be: stop using the tool immediately, record exactly what was exposed, notify the information officer, and whatever you do, do not delete evidence. The goal of a breach response is fast containment, not pointing fingers or assigning blame. To make all this actually work, Point 9 asserts that every AI policy needs an owner. Under POPIA and PIA, your business should already have a registered information officer or a deputy. This person, or perhaps an operations manager with enough authority, must hold accountability for approving tools, reviewing those vendor terms, managing the training, and coordinating incident responses. Making AI policy decisions requires both compliance awareness and a really deep operational understanding of the business. And that brings us to our final section, Section 6, Training and Next Steps. Look, a policy is completely useless if your staff don't understand it. But they do not need a highly technical lecture on large language models. They need practical, workflow-specific training. Use realistic business examples. If someone needs AI to summarize a client complaint, teach them exactly how to strip the client's name, address, and account number out of the prompt first. If a manager is drafting a disciplinary letter, make it abundantly clear that a human professional must review the final document before it goes anywhere. Bringing this all together, here is what your starter policy should look like. It outlines allowed tools, restricted data categories, vendor review requirements, the absolute necessity of human fact-checking, and clear incident steps. The best policy isn't the longest or the most complicated one out there. Actually, the best policy is the one that is specific, usable, and directly connected to how your South African business actually operates day to day. Which leaves us with this final important question. Are you ready to turn informal AI use into a safe, controlled business advantage? Speed without control creates massive risk, but the right framework protects your data while empowering your team. I highly recommend reaching out for a Repautomate readiness review to build a practical policy that's tailored to your actual operations. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and I'll see you in the next one.